After the 1972 season, Rick Barry, who had helped the New York Nets rise to ABA prominence, returned to the NBA. A year later, when Julius Erving threatened to jump leagues and play for the NBA's Atlanta Hawks, the Nets jumped in. The team in the largest media market set its sights on the ABA's signature player.
We stepped up and put up a tremendous amount of money, and the league put up some money, and we signed Julius to a gigantic contract, nothing like it in basketball at that point. Nothing in the NBA like that at that point. Nobody in our league would have done it except us. Obviously, we did it for selfish reasons for ourselves and also for the league.
It was in New York that the legend of Julius Erving really took flight. Dr. J had become basketball's most unique talent.
Julius had a way about him. It might just be one thing that he did in the game that people never forgot. You know, it was one move. People would take that home with them, and they would say, wow, I've never seen anything like that before.
Someone would say, hey, did you see the move that Julius Erving made on that Tuesday night in 1973 at Freedom Hall in Louisville? And so some guy would say, yeah, I saw it. And then he'd embellish his version of it. No, he went around 3 guys and then underneath the 4th guy and hung in the air for 3 seconds. No. It was 2 guys, and then he leapfrogged the other 2 guys, and he held it with his left hand and switched it to his right hand and dunked it. And they're like fish stories.
All around the league, whenever Julius came to their town, they would sell out because they wanted to come and see this guy they called the Doctor, and he was just putting on a show for everyone.
The first fast break that he was on, he did a whirlwind in the lane and slam dunk over the top of Artist Gym. I saw over 16,000 people in our building stand up, hitting hands, bumping and doing their thing. I said, this guy is turning our building against us.
We were going to put him on the cover. We wanted to get a picture of him dunking, but you could never depend in a game that this was going to happen. And he got held up coming out to shoot because he'd been interrupted by a rabbi and his son from Schenectady, whom Julius had met someplace before, and Julius had to stop and talk to this guy and do autographs for the kids and so forth. And he came over to me at the press table and said, gee, I'm sorry I'm late and I can't do it now because I'm not going to be warm enough, but I'll get you one in the game. And sure enough, very shortly into the game, he intercepted a pass in the middle of the court and then just came right down the middle and went right through the roof. And we got a terrific picture of it. It was the only action ABA cover I think we ever did.
If they didn't have Julius Erving, that thing would have folded like that. He kept that league up, in my opinion, all by himself.
With Erving now basketball's brightest star, his Nets became one of the league's best teams, winning 2 championships. At the opposite end of the spectrum were the Spirits of St. Louis, the poster boys of the latter-day ABA. After moving from Carolina in 1974, the Spirits had assembled a colorful conglomeration of highly paid but ineffective young stars, the most successful of whom turned out to be their inexperienced broadcaster.
Freddie knocked it away and made the steal. Now he's on the front end of the break. Behind the back to Marvin. Pretty play. 2 for Marvin Barnes and a great assist for Freddie Lewis.
The best basketball tape I had was a game between Syracuse and Rutgers that I'd done during my sophomore year on the campus radio station. So I took the tape, found a halfway decent sequence of about 10 possessions, and then re-recorded it, and I had the engineer turn the treble down and the bass up so I would sound older. I mean, all of us at Syracuse, all the kids from the Northeast, were all doing a poor man's Marv Albert anyway.
Left side of the lane, the short jump, Marvin, yes!
On the court, the Spirits were an aptly named, talented collection of, well, free spirits. None more so than Marvin Barnes.
This guy was one of the greatest raw talents you have ever seen. And when he wanted to, he had a great heart for the game. When it came to making the bus, making the plane, making practice, that was a different story. One day, we played in Louisville. And Louisville's not that far from St. Louis, but they're in different time zones. Louisville Eastern Time Zone, St. Louis Central Time Zone. So we play a game and lose at Freedom Hall. The next morning, we gather at the airport, and the traveling secretary hands out the itinerary. It says, TWA Flight 305, depart Louisville 8 a.m., arrive St. Louis 7:56. Marvin comes walking up to me. Bro, come over here. I don't know about you, but I am not getting on any time machine. I was afraid he thought that if we boarded this plane and flew indefinitely, we'd begin to, like meet Lincoln or Jefferson or something. Just keep on going.
But the real question was, could the ABA keep going? Still desperate for gate attractions, teams continued to overpay for top players. In 1974, the Utah Stars signed Moses Malone, the first player ever to go directly from high school to the pros. A year later, David Thompson, the NBA's #1 draft pick and the player whose talents most closely resembled Julius Erving, chose the ABA's Denver Nuggets. But for the ABA, the cost of competing with the NBA was devastating. Hemorrhaging money, the long shot league was winning the battle for superstars, but losing the war to survive. The dying league's final season began with 10 teams, but the new Baltimore franchise folded before playing a single game, and San Diego and Utah weren't far behind. Down to 7 teams, the ABA was in danger of giving its final performance.
So the real strategy in the league was, let's keep resuscitating this thing. Let's perform CPR, which we were doing on a daily basis practically to keep this baby going. Look, we do a deal with these guys or we're going to drop dead.
I felt, let them rot. It was only a matter of time before they were going to quit, but the owners didn't want to wait.
There were owners in the NBA that were drooling to get their hands on some of our players. I mean, there were dozens of top players that these guys coveted.
Knowing that its rival league was financially strapped and limping along, the older, aging league showed no mercy, salivating over the ABA's cachet of young talent that included some of the best players in basketball. The NBA smelled blood.
Their theory was this influx of new talent, this infusion of new talent would be a great thing for their league, but they wanted to do it on their terms and under their control.
The terms were harsh, more like a massacre than a merger. Only 4 ABA teams survived. The New York Nets, the Denver Nuggets, the Indiana Pacers, and San Antonio Spurs would all pay a heavy financial price for the privilege of joining the NBA. The last ABA game between the New York Nets and Denver Nuggets was played on May 13th, 1976. Typical of the league, it was fast-paced and exciting. Led by Super John Williamson, the Nets came from 20 points behind in the 4th quarter to win the championship. The wild ride was over. Sure, they made fun of the ABA, but in the end, the joke was on the basketball establishment. The no-defense, all-flash league wound up revolutionizing the sport. It taught the Brown Ball League that the game could be colorful and entertaining. All the ABA ever wanted was to let the world know how good it was. A year after the merger, there was little doubt. 5 of the 10 starters in the NBA Finals came from the ABA, and 10 of the 24 players in the All-Star Game had ABA roots. And the most valuable player that day was the doctor, Julius Erving.
And that sends everyone, really. Julius Erving.
Like I said, for a league that got very little respect, we always did put on a great show. Yeah, it was a long shot. But as it turned out, it was a shot worth taking. And like the rest of the guys who played in the Red, White, and Blue League, I'll always be proud of the years I spent in the late, great ABA.